right now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, cool. All right, everybody. Tristan Scroggins. I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, hello. Hi. It's good to be here. I wanted to talk or give a little preview of some of what I was going to um, talk about in the camp. And I thought I would teach this exercise that I teach a lot to folks just because it's kind of there's a lot of stuff in it. There's like four different things that it works on. And so even if you can't work on all four things right now, you can just work on the one thing. And and kind of build up to it. It took many years of working on it to get it really smooth, but the idea is it's working on leaving your fingers down closer to the fingerboard while you're playing, which will help with speed when you're moving faster. The further away that you move your hand from the instrument, the further you have to move it back the next time you need it to play a note. It also helps with just not letting your fingers fly away too much and gaining a little uh, independence in each of the fingers, especially the ring and the pinky finger, which because they share a tendon often want to do either the same thing or something completely different than what you want them to do. So I'll play through just one time through of the exercise first, and then I'll break it down and explain it. So it sounds like. And then we'll sort of go on from there. But so the basic idea is that we're just working with the first four frets and all four fingers. So each fret gets one finger. So the first four notes are the first four frets of the G string, and we're going to use all four fingers. So the first fret with the index finger, second fret with the middle finger, and we're doing alternating pick strokes here. So down, up, down, up, down, up. Then, and notice when I put the second finger down, I didn't lift up the first finger. So we're going to try to keep the first finger down when we put down the second finger. Then we're going to put our ring finger on the third fret, leaving these two fingers down. So all three fingers are down. And then we're going to put our pinky on the fourth fret. So all four fingers should be down. And it's going to be pretty natural right now if you're not used to it to be kind of squeezing pretty hard. Um, it'll take a little bit of uh, doing to you don't want to be pushing down with all four fingers. You only need to be pushing down with whichever frets the highest. But you don't want to pick these fingers up because you don't need to pick them up. It's just going to be kind of a waste of energy to pick them up. So then the next part is going backwards. And so we're going to play the fourth fret again, pinky, and then we're going to lift up only our pinky. And so this is going to be a little challenging if you're not used to it. So lifting up only your pinky and playing the third fret. And when you lift up your pinky, here it's kind of hard to show, you only want it to go up about that much. It's again with the angles, but it's not coming up out here and it's not retreating back into your palm. It's floating just above there. And that is going to be a challenge. So don't worry if it's not coming naturally, um, but the idea is that you just are only lifting it up as much as you need to. So then we're going to keep going. We're going to lift up the ring finger and then lift up the middle finger. And so now back down to the first fret. And then my hand, that's how far away my fingers are from the frets. So that much is. And please feel free to do it as slow as you would like. There's no point in trying to speed this up past to where you can actually pull off the technical parts of it. If you have to go, it's gonna be better in the long run. The more that you practice something incorrectly, the more that you're reinforcing that that's the correct way to do it. So it's always going to be better to work on things correctly at whatever speed works for you. So then the next bit is alternating finger patterns. And so it's going to be index, pinky, ring, pinky, middle, pinky, ring, pinky. So what that sounds like is first fret, index, and then pinky, so fourth fret. And I still have my index finger down. I didn't pick it up because I didn't need to. And then ring. So I picked up only my pinky and put down only my ring. And then pinky. So now I have my first finger, my index finger, my ring finger, and my pinky finger down. And then we're going to do the same thing, but start with the middle finger. So middle, then pinky, ring, pinky. And so that, now we have all four fingers down again. And so all of that so far has been index, middle, ring, pinky, pinky, ring, middle, index, index, pinky, ring, pinky, middle, pinky, ring, pinky. And I know that's a lot of information to hold on to in the actual class during the camp. I have it written out, and I can share that with everybody at the camp. So then the transition to the next string is also a really important thing, because at the end of that we have all four fingers down because we ended on pinky. So we're going to do the same thing now on the D string, but so our first note on the D string is going to be the index finger, and so we're going to move only the index finger. We're going to leave all these the last three fingers down on the G string, pick up only our index finger, and move it over to the first fret of the D string. And then it just continues from there. But so now you have to pick up only the middle finger from the G string and move it over to the D. And now this part's extra hard because you're leaving your pinky down on the G string and trying to pick up only your ring finger and move it over to the D string for the third fret, and then the pinky. And then it just continues. And I teach this exercise to everybody regardless of what level the class is, because even though it is a pretty definitive, it's a pretty advanced sort of exercise, the work that's required, what you're building up with the independence in your ring and your pinky is really challenging. And I did this for I've been playing for like 15 years or something, and I've done it almost every day for 15 years. So it's something that I've worked on a lot, and I couldn't do all of it when I started out, but it's always been helpful. And part of what it's helpful with is one of the things, especially in sort of when you're getting into more intermediate mandolin playing, that you hear people doing will sometimes be the notes sound kind of like more staccato and short than they necessarily want them to. You don't want everything to be like super legato and like ringing all the time, depending on what style of music you're doing, but you want things to sound kind of nice. And one of the things that helps with that is keeping the fingers down in between notes. So instead of thinking about things as each individual note and then hunting even if it's just sort of really quickly, like thinking of what the next note is and getting your fingers to it, if you can leave the finger down before the next note and let it ring out as long as it's supposed to, then it'll sound a little nicer. It's the difference between and by leaving your fingers down in between, by not picking them up after each note. See, this index finger stayed down. It was able to ring as long as it is written and is supposed to ring. If you pick it up, then it stops the note immediately and it cuts it off, and it doesn't really have the same effect, which is an effect that you can use when you're looking to do something more staccato. But generally, it'll help with tone and making things sound nice. And also the keeping your fingers down in between, not letting them fly up, will always be a great thing for speed. Just keeping your fingers closer to the fretboard. It's also great for chord shifting. A lot of people, especially when they're first learning chords, they're usually learning one or two shapes of chords, and there's a lot of having to move them around. Like, there's a lot of moving up and down the fretboard looking for these chords. But as you learn more chord shapes and patterns, you can start to play, especially simple songs, by not really moving your hand very much, because all the notes are actually really close to each other. They're just in different shapes. So you can, and by not picking your hands up really, really far, you can get to those chords quicker. Like, if you're picking your fingers all the way up, it's going to be pretty hard to make a smooth transition to other things. My teacher used to stand in front of me with an index card and hold it in front of my hand, and like, I wasn't allowed to hit the index card with my fingers. That was the whole point of the exercise, was just to keep your fingers down. So that's that exercise. You can keep it going on once you get to the E string by just picking up your last three fingers, your middle ring and pinky, and sliding the first finger up to the second fret, and then doing it on the E string, starting at the second fret. And then doing the same thing for the string shift, but just in reverse. So you're going to the A string and picking up just one finger at a time. Onto the D string. And making sure you're having good technique, all down up strokes. Your wrist is kind of straight. There's a gap in between your hand and the neck. And then when you get to the G on the second fret, then you pick your fingers up and slide the index finger to the third fret. And keep going. So that's that exercise. Bennett, I don't know if you're there. I can keep talking if you'd like.
Hey, I am here. Hey. Sure. Yeah, share something else if you'd like to. You can also see if there's any questions. If anybody has any questions, you can post them in the chat box, and Tristan could briefly answer them for you.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer some questions. I will say, if this exercise is challenging and you put like keeping it all in your head and all these unfamiliar things, you can do this with something you're familiar with. Maybe not a tune necessarily, because that there's kind of a lot going on there. If you're just starting out with this exercise, but you could take just a G scale and you could take out the pinky aspect of it if that was it's still too challenging for you. You could just do it your 2-octave G scale with the open strings. And just make sure, and just follow the same sort of ideas where you're not lifting up the fingers in between because you don't need to. And then when you're going to the next string, you're not picking up the fingers. And in the not picking up the fingers thing, the more nuanced version of that is going to be not, you don't have to keep pressing down on that C note. In this case, when you switch to the D, you don't need both of them ringing, but you can just stop pressing down without picking up on that finger. And the trick to that is going to be still letting that note ring for as long as it's supposed to, like letting it ring for the full eighth note, quarter note, whatever duration. And that's going to be controlled by this finger and how long you're pressing down. But just go through your scales and don't let your fingers fly up. And you can do it and add the pinky. That'll be a little challenge. Using the pinky with the scale will be a little more challenging because you have a lot of pretty far distances, like the 7th fret to the 2nd fret. So that'll be a little more challenging than just doing it all on these chromatic frets. Aaron asked, could you give a rough idea of what you'll be teaching for the virtual camp? So for the virtual camp, I have a few different classes each day. And so there's kind of an easier class and then a more challenging class, if you want to look at it that way. I am looking for the thing I sent Bennett to see what I said.
I'm going to chime in here. And Aaron, I'm going to post as a blog post, I'm going to post all of the class descriptions that Tristan shared with me. He can go over them briefly, of course, but I'm going to post them in writing, the ones that Tristan shared and the one that Casey has shared with me too. So you have an idea of what all of the mandolin classes are going to be.
Yeah, I remember, I think there was exercise boot camp. So there's like that exercise, working on that a little more, working on some right hand stuff and some left hand exercises and talking about some different things to kind of keep those exercises interesting and kind of explaining why they're useful. And I think I said tremolo, just talking about at least how I approach tremolo. It feels like it's something that's really overly fraught for a lot of people. And it's just such an important part of mandolin playing that doesn't have to like be so stressful. And I think also double stops, I said, just figuring out how to find double stops and where they go. And then on the more difficult side, I think there's a cross-picking one, like me talking about at least my experience with cross-picking. I'm not an expert on any particular style other than what I do, but I can talk about, I'll be talking about how I developed some of that and sharing some of my arrangements for things. And then a really fun thing that's building a bluegrass solo for the mandolin, which is just taking a song, figuring out the melody and figuring out how to play. Oh, there it is. Figuring out how to play the melody of a song, like a bluegrass song, like a song with vocals, figuring out how to take that melody and make it sound more lyrical and interesting by listening to the phrasing of other instruments like the fiddle and singing, like breaking down what those people are doing, and applying it as much as we can to the mandolin to keep things from, a lot of times, especially, I remember when I was learning, I really didn't like it just, the playing the melody seemed really boring to me because my understanding of playing the melody was these like really short there just wasn't a lot happening, and it didn't sound very interesting. But that was just like playing one. It was the melody, but it was devoid of any sort of like um, musical sort of any of the things that we can add to it to make something sound more musical. So as I started to learn more about, well, just like studying uh, the masters, as it were, just figuring out how to express melody on the mandolin without having to just play a bunch of random notes, which is um, pretty easy to do on the mandolin. So we try to avoid it. Um, but yeah, that'll be kind of my what I'm up to. And also Casey, I'm sure will have some great stuff. I love Casey. He's such a great player.
Cool. Well, Tristan, this was really great. We're so excited to have you for camp. And if everybody hasn't checked it out, you can see the full lineup of teachers and all of the details for camp at tunefox.com/camp. It's in 2 weeks, so May 15th through 17th, and it's 125 per instrument. Um, yeah, so feel free to check that out. And Tristan, we'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks, man.
See you then. Thanks, Bennett.
Yeah.